So we're just moments away from kickoff between Penn State versus Purdue, and there are some key players that are not on the availability report, and that's a good thing for Penn State.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. My name is Zach Seyko. I am your host of the show, and this is a live, just kind of final look at Penn State versus Purdue. My expectations for this game. I encourage you to be active in the live chat. Just a last-second discussion before Penn State, well, beats up on the Boilermakers, right? That's kind of what we're all anticipating today. But I want to address the fact that Nicholas Singleton is not on the injury report, or the availability report. I don't want to call it what it isn't. Where Penn State, 3 hours before kickoff, has to say who's questionable, who's out, and Singleton's off of it. I mean, that's the best case scenario for Penn State. Now, what they end up doing with his game plan, how involved is he going to be? How many touches, right? Is he going to get rest early in the game if Penn State's up by a bunch? Penn State always goes at it from the frame of mind, if they are available, they are playing. Singleton is not going to get benched just because, oh, well, he could get hurt. If he's not on the availability report, if he's not questionable, if he's not listed as out, then he is going to be playing. So one way or another, you're going to see a heavy dose of Nicholas Singleton and Kaytron Allen. And I don't blame Penn State. I would never blame Penn State for wanting to play its starters and keeping them in game shape, because it is difficult to win in college football. Sure, this slate is favorable, Purdue, at Minnesota, and then Maryland to wrap up. But if you're caught napping, if you're saying, well, we're just going to let off the gas pedal just because it's Purdue, well, we're going to take our starters out, and then they have to try harder to get back into game speed leading up to the next game against Minnesota, that's where you're vulnerable. So Penn State, at this point in the season, this is the shortest availability report that I've seen for Penn State. KJ Winston is presumably out for the season. That's not a report. That's just, I mean, based on what we've seen, him being away from the team periodically, and then in the leg brace most recently at the Ohio State game. Caden Saunders is back at practice, so he should be back soon, but he is out. Cam Wallace, I would say out indefinitely. That injury did not look good a long time ago. Keon Wiley is back at practice. He should be back playing for Penn State and be off of this availability report. Zariah Fisher, haven't seen him at practice. It would be nice to have him back at defensive end. And then tight end Andrew Rapplier, I would say out indefinitely. He falls under the same category as Cam Wallace. There's an understanding that he's probably not going to return this season, but nobody is questionable. We've seen time and time again that these availability reports are long. They are a mile long. Now, part of that is it's a road game, so this is based on who traveled with the team. If you didn't travel with the team, you're not going to be on the availability report here. So those are the players that they cannot play because they're out due to injury, and the guys that actually did travel with the team. So Nicholas Singleton is a go today. And that's the best case scenario for Penn State. And I said it going out to practice in the middle of the week. Singleton, with all the bumps and bruises that he's been dealing with over the past, it feels like 3 or 4 weeks now, that he's looked as close to 100% in my opinion. That's just my honest opinion. Seeing him in practice and saying, okay, this looks like the Nicholas Singleton of, I don't want to say old, right? Because he's just a junior. It's not like he's gone away from anything. He's just dealt with some bumps and bruises and hasn't looked like himself. But he's still playing. He's still pushing through it. And leading up to Purdue, everything looked fine on my accord. Let's check in on the chat. Like I said, this won't be long. Kickoffs and it looks like based on 12 minutes away between Penn State and Purdue. Penn State a 28.5-point favorite. Steven says, I want to see a lot of Quentin Martin. I don't think you will today. Because he is still, his red shirt is still a factor. He's appeared in 3 games. He appears in 1 more. That is okay. That's okay. But then, okay, what is the event that Singleton does? The bumps and bruises creep back up on Singleton, and then he can't go. and then you're down to Katron Allen and Corey Smith, and you would like to have Quentin Martin available, but I don't think we'll see any more of Quentin Martin until that Maryland game. And granted, that's senior day, so we'll see how they approach that, even though there really aren't seniors in the running back room. That is great news, but I don't want them to be needed beyond the first half. No, exactly. I mean, Penn State should be in a position to where they can get rotational players into the game. They can get the backups in. They can get the true freshmen in the game. You don't want Penn State to need Singleton against Purdue. But I also don't want them to take him out of the game plan. Oh, just because. We want to, because then you could say that about any game. Well, we shouldn't play him against Bowling Green because they're a MAC team. Well, Purdue's 1-8, so we shouldn't have to. No, you want to keep your players as close to game speed as possible. How involved Singleton is today will be telling. I don't know that we'll see the true 50-50 split, if you will, between Katron Allen and Singleton, where it's a carry for a carry, it's a catch for a catch, it's a block for a block, right, kind of thing. I could see the workload being 60-40 or 70-30 Katron Allen, because Katron Allen looks 100%. And then Corey Smith kind of featured a little bit. Well, I shouldn't say featured, but he'll cycle in periodically. I mean, Corey Smith, good showing against Washington at the end of the game there. You don't want to overlook teams, but this should be no issue at all. The Gophers could cause fits, though. I still think Penn State is that much better. Don't get me wrong. I know history has said that PJ Fleck is capable of the upset, right? That's still another road. That's a consecutive road trip. That is a Minnesota team that is better than anybody else that is remaining. Purdue, Maryland. I will not discount the Gophers. However, I'm still confident that Penn State can win by 2 touchdowns. Minnesota's claim to fame defensively is that they force a lot of turnovers. They force tons of turnovers. One of the top teams. I don't remember this team's statistics off the top of my head, but they are one of the best teams in forcing turnovers. They might even be number 1 because the margin was pretty wide early on, and then other teams have caught back up. So that's what Minnesota does, but Penn State doesn't have a turnover problem. The running backs don't have fumbleitis. Other than the USC game, Drew hasn't thrown a ton of interceptions. So if Minnesota can win games by forcing turnovers, and Penn State doesn't turn over the ball, I don't see an issue with those matchups. Minnesota's too one-dimensional on offense. You take away Darius Taylor, the running back. They don't have a game plan that can. They rely on the defense to force turnovers, create short fields for the offense, and then hopefully the offense may or may not convert. That's the way Minnesota operates. Penn State, they can win a variety of ways, right? That's how it's not. I'm not trying to say, hey, I know better than everybody else, but if you want to put it in simple terms, Minnesota can only win a handful of ways, and Penn State can win a whole vast variety of ways. So I'm going to take Penn State's chances in the fact of, okay, they can play from behind. They can play with the lead. If you take away 1 or 2 components of Minnesota's game plan, they're done. Penn State can adapt, and that's why they were able to come back from behind against a USC team when they were down 20-6. Years past, that 2022 or 23 Penn State team would not have come back against USC. Plain and simple. But this 2024 team can win doing different things. If their original game plan doesn't work, they can go to other things to get a victory. Fat man rushing for over 80 yards in a game moves to 14-0 today. I think, Penn State's undefeated when Katron Allen meets his rushing mark. Let's go through some players that I'm interested to see today, that I'm eager to see. Also, Purdue's availability report. Just looking at it, there aren't any impact players that are missing. And even if they were available, or if they were 50-50, I'm sorry. I don't think it matters today. I'm fine with going on the record for that. Purdue should play angry, but that's only going to last for so long. Purdue can only throw so many punches before Penn State's going to overwhelm them. Because I see the things, there was a memo sent out by Purdue, the actual university, saying that the men's basketball student section, the fan club or whatever you want to call it, they had a memo sent to them saying that you cannot say chants at our home games criticizing Ryan Walters, the head football coach, or the team or anything like that. And it's like, man, if you're the football team, that's got to sting. Your ego's got to be hurting. So everybody's looking past this game. Everybody's saying, well, Penn State needs to put its backups in. They can let off the gas at some point in time. if I'm the Purdue football team, I'm angry. I am upset. I don't care who's across from me. I'm trying to go. And what do they have to lose? Right? They're 1-8. They've been absolutely beaten up, battered down by the schedule. It's one of the toughest schedules in the country. So I don't blame Purdue if they try trickery or anything else and go a million miles an hour, but eventually motivation gets you so far. Anger only gets you so far. I don't see the first half. Purdue might keep it respectable. Maybe Penn State's only up by 10 or something like that. But the second half is kind of where it's going to differentiate. Okay. Final thing, because kickoff is in a matter of minutes, right? I just wanted to do a final live check-in here. So the availability report is the best Penn State's seen it all season long, and that's great going into this stage when you have 3 games left going into this stage of the season, and you are arguably your healthiest. You couldn't have asked for a better break for Penn State. Players that I am eager to see today, I want to see Tyseer Denmark. People are calling for Quentin Martin. That's understandable. Other freshman players, but Tyseer Denmark is an X factor. His red shirt is preserved. Penn State has done everything to protect it. He appeared in 1 game. I think it was against Kent State, off the top of my head. And now you can play in 3 games with no limitations. He's available. He's full go. And honestly, I'm going to say this now. He is arguably the best route runner as a true freshman. He is arguably the best route runner on the team. Julian Fleming, Trey Wallace, I would say Liam Clifford's probably truly the best from a natural talent standpoint. Like, he just runs very good routes. But Tyseer Denmark is a true freshman, and he did not enroll early. He is right there next to Liam Clifford as maybe a 1A or 1B if you don't want to put a true freshman as the best route runner on the team. Tyseer Denmark just looks the part of a future star wide receiver at Penn State. I'm not going to say that he's going to be the greatest of all time. That is a stretch. But I think Denmark has the potential to be either a complimentary number 1 or a true number 1 until somebody better comes along. So Tyseer Denmark, if he has a game, if he has maybe 3 catches, 50 yards, maybe he gets his first career touchdown today. I think that's fair. He might even have more receptions than that. That he is the X factor down the stretch, because if you can gear him up, you just add another weapon to the wide receivers, and then you get Caden Saunders back, hopefully to 100%. Then the wide receiver core doesn't become as much of a liability down the stretch, because that's what's holding this team back. If you can get pass catchers that don't always have to be schemed open by Andy Kotelnicki, then you really do become a dark horse contender for the national championship. I'm serious. That is the missing part for Penn State. So if Drew Aller and Tyseer Denmark can develop a rapport, or if the coaches can at least trust him to say, hey, in crunch time, can we trust you in the 2-minute drill at the end of games? Right now, Denmark certainly is far from that. But if you impress against Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland, who knows how much they trust him down the stretch. A couple more comments coming in. I'm really looking forward to the All-Star Classic, as am I. I will actually be going to that. I will be going to that tonight. I'll have Purdue recaps and analysis, of course, but I actually will be attending the All-Star Classic for Penn State Wrestling. Excited to see those guys. Love the football and the wrestling coverage, but throw a little hockey in now that the season has started. Our Gras. Actually, funny that you mentioned that. There is a season preview up on the channel. Go check it out for Penn State men's hockey. Didn't see it, thanks. No, you are welcome. Go check it out. It's on the podcast feed, and it's also on the YouTube channel. Tyseer Denmark, I'm eager to see the defensive ends as well. Max Granville and Jalen Harvey should get in the game. It's really been the Max Granville show as far as true freshmen, but they have full belief in Jalen Harvey. That was a long recruiting battle for anybody that follows the recruiting coverage here. So it'll be good to see all of that hard work pay off by the staff for that fight, that battle for Jalen Harvey, and now to see him as a Penn State player. No limitations, so his red shirt's preserved, and that's good. Defensive linemen and tight ends are the toughest across the board, because you need to put on weight, and it takes time to put on that weight and be able to play competitively in Division I football. So those guys, because a lot of those times, those guys come in at 210, 220 pounds, and then you're taking on a 320-pound offensive lineman. Like, it's legal, but all kidding aside, though, defensive ends and tight ends, offensive and defensive linemen across the board, need to add weight or else you're going to get bullied in college football. That's why most of them redshirt. So it's good to see that as a true freshman, Max Granville, who should be a senior in high school, and Jalen Harvey are going to be playing and see a significant amount of snaps as true freshmen. That is very telling for those guys. All right, kickoff's in a matter of minutes. Let's see, checking in on the... No more comments here, so that's going to wrap it up. Nicholas Singleton is available. Expect him to play for the most part, and we'll see how Penn State factors in the game plan. We'll talk about that. We'll have halftime thoughts. We'll go live again at halftime to talk about this game, and we'll also talk about and have an instant reaction as usual, and then do a live recap of Penn State versus Purdue as well. And wrestling begins its season, yes, with the NWCA All-Star Classic, but also, they have the season home opener tomorrow in Rec Hall. That's going to do it for me here on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. One final check-in between Penn State versus Purdue. I'll say my score prediction again just to wrap it up. 56-10 Penn State over the Purdue Boilermakers. Thanks for checking out this live episode of Locked On Nittany Lions.